to this module on OCI compartments. My name is Rohit Rahi and I'm part of the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure team. So compartment is a collection of related resources like VCN, compute instances, database instances that can be accessed only by groups that have been given permissions by for example, by an admin in your organization. Compartments, the whole idea of compartments is to help you organize and control access to your resources. So what are some of the design considerations? Now, as we saw at the beginning of this lecture series, each resource belongs to a single compartment. So you cannot have a resource living in two compartments. It's a logical place where the resource lives. But resources can be connected, shared across compartments, right? So a VCN and the subnet, which is a component of the VCN, can actually live in different compartments. That's completely supported. Compartment you can delete after you create, or you could rename the compartments. Compartment can have sub-compartments, which can be up to 6 levels deep. Most resources can be moved to a different compartment after they are created, though some restrictions do apply. And again, you can check documentation on what some of those restrictions are. After creating a compartment, you need to write at least one policy for it. Otherwise, it cannot be accessed. Of course, the admins who have created the compartment can access it, or users who have permissions to the tenancy can access it. But to really make it useful, you need to write a policy against the compartment. And sub-compartments, which are, we said can be 6 level deep, inherit access permissions from compartments higher up its hierarchy. And again, we'll look into a module on this specifically. And when you create a policy, we looked into it in the previous module, you need to specify which compartment which compartment it attaches to. So what happens when you sign up for Oracle Cloud Infrastructure for the first time, right? So there is this concept of tenancy, which is nothing but your account, and you get this thing called a root compartment. And think about root compartment as sort of the parent compartment for all your other compartments you are going to create yourself. So root is something which we create, and we also create a default administrator for the account. And there's also a group called administrators, default group called administrators. You cannot delete this group, and there must be at least one user in it. You can add users, you can remove users, but at any given time it needs at least one user. It seems again very logical. If you add more than one users in here, remember that they are part of the administrators group, so they have access just by virtue of being present there. They have full access to all the resources. Now, what kind of policy would you write in it? Remember, we talked about users belong to groups, and they are useful because they have a policy. What kind of policy would you write for the administrators group? This is the policy you would write: allow group administrators to manage all resources in tenancy. Again, you cannot delete this policy. It's by default there. It cannot change it also, and this is called the tenancy policy, and we'll look into this in the console. Now, as I said, root is something we create, root compartment, and think about this as a parent of every compartment out there. Now, nothing stops you from putting all your resources in the root compartment. You could do that. But the best practice is to create dedicated compartments when you need to isolate resources. Because remember, the whole idea of compartment is to isolate your resources. So if you put everything in root, it defeats the purpose of creating compartments in the first place. Now there is this new capability called compartment quotas. Now compartment quotas are similar to service limit. So service limit basically means when you get an account, this is again very common to all the clouds, we have specific limits in place, like how many compute instances you can create, and so on and so forth. And you can contact Oracle, and we will change. If you have a valid need, we can obviously increase your service limits. But there is this concept called compartment quotas, very similar to service limit, but the difference is that service limits are set by Oracle, like I said, and compartment quotas are set by your own admins using policies. Now, why would you do that? There's a good example here. Suppose you want to use bare metal instances, but these are expensive, so you don't want this to be used in your tenancy. Meaning, if you have this tenancy across multiple you have multiple usage in multiple regions worldwide, you want to restrict the bare metal usage, let's say, to a specific region. So what you could do is you could write compartment quota policies here, something like this, which allows only people in the in users in the Phoenix region to use bare metal instances. Other regions are zeroed out. So how do you set these compartment quotas? Very simple. You have policies, you use quota policies, and you have these keywords like set. You set the maximum number of resources you want. Unset, you reset the quota to the default service limits, and you zero it. Zero meaning you remove access to a cloud resource for a compartment or a tenancy. So for example, here you say zero compute quotas, and you have this keyword here, BM, bare metal in tenancy, meaning you zeroed out bare metal instances, so nobody could create a bare metal instance in your tenancy. But then you are overriding this for the Phoenix region by setting a compute quota to 5 for bare metal instances, where request.region, and we looked into this in the advanced IAM policy. If you want to restrict, make it policies more conditional, you could have request and target. So you could say request.region, and the region is US Phoenix 1, and this way only users in US Phoenix 1 can use bare metal instances. Other users in other regions will have access to no bare metal instances. So before we go into the next module, let's jump into the console and let's look into some of the capabilities around compartments. So if I come back here, we were using this user. We had a specific user, and we created a group, and we created a policy in the previous modules. So let me just go and talk about compartments here. So first thing, I'll click on Identity Access Management menu. I see the compartment here. So you can see here, this is my root compartment, and remember, this is my tenancy, right? INT Oracle Rohit. And if you can see here, first thing it says subcompartments 15. So what this means is I have 15 compartments here, and these compartments are all part of my parent compartment here, the root compartment, right? So that is what it's being showing here. Now most of these have no subcompartments, but this one here, training compartment, if I click on training, you can see it has training subcompartment level 1, and it has level 2. So it has 2 levels deep. And remember, the compartments can be 6 level deep, right? So these compartments are there. Now there is also this capability called Compartment Explorer. So if I go into governance and click on Compartment Explorer, you can see the various compartments appear on the left hand side. And if I click on this training compartment here, I can bring up specific resources here. Now this is very useful because if I'm compartments can have many resources, hundreds or even thousands of resources. This view here is really good because it lets me see at a glance what is available in my compartment. So if I just click on, let's say, the training subcompartment 1, I can see that it has a virtual cloud network, it has 3 subnets, and route table and a security list, right? And it also has the training the subcompartment 2, right? And the subcompartment 2 has no items here, right? So this is sort of this view helps. Now we wrote a policy here in the previous module. We could actually extend this policy, and we could write a policy here. The previous policies were all written for the tenancies, but we could write a policy in the compartment. And I need to go back and okay, I have probably remember a particular compartment here. So we could say something like allow group training group to manage instance family in compartment production, and there's a compartment called production, and I can add this statement. Now if I log in as that particular user, the training user 1, and I go back to this menu, if I look at compute here, earlier I could only see the root compartment, if you guys remember from the previous module. But now if I go here, I can see all the compartments, and if I click on production, I could literally create an instance here. Now it's likely I don't have a virtual network here, but let's see if I can see if there's a virtual network here, and click create, and this should let me as bingo, there you go, it lets me create an instance in the production compartment. And if I remove that policy, I cannot create an instance in the production compartment. So this quickly shows you, your compartments. It's a logical place where you keep your resources, you write your policies against those compartments, and then your users can start using this the specific compartments. Thank you so much for joining this lecture. If you have some time, please join the next lecture where we look into more complex scenarios around policy inheritance and attachment, and what happens if when you move resources across compartments. Thank you.